we introduce analytic overlay to our building automation system, which allows us now to use data-driven decision-making to actually target and identify for ourselves specific goals that we can track.
I'm Dan Hounsell, Senior Editor of Building Operating Management Magazine. I'm speaking today with Mark Baker, who is Director of Facilities with the Denver Art Museum, and we're discussing his efforts to help the museum's facilities achieve net zero status. Mark, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure, Dan. Thanks for having me. We're always excited to talk about what's happening here at the Denver Art Museum, specifically when it comes to sustainability. So we appreciate the opportunity.
Can you describe the museum's net zero goals?
The Denver Art Museum, when it started its net zero efforts, we're partnered with Albiero Westover and Schneider Electric to kind of take a three-tier approach to developing our net zero strategy. And that consisted of first strategizing where we were going with the plan, and then an effort to energize the building in a more efficient and effective way to draw down our requirements, and then to decarbonize our operational environment and follow that cyclical pattern with a continual review and update as technologies change and as we achieve efficiencies in those various operating areas. Yeah, so we're well on our pathway toward achieving that goal. I would say we're leading the way for our Tier 1 culturals here in Denver. Probably 50 to 60% of our initial visioning is done and implementation. We're well on our pathway of partnering with the city to achieve those goals. They have some hard timeline set for 2030, 30% reduction by 2030, 50% reduction by 2050. And we are doing that in concert with our energy provider for downtown Denver, which is Xcel Energy. So the one thing that you'll find as we talk net zero is it's a community effort. It's really a team effort. It sounds great. There are certain things you can do individually, but a lot of it is about building partnerships, creating relationships, and then using one another to keep you honest on a pathway of milestones and benchmarks to achieve the ambitious goals that the communities are setting for this carbon reduction and net zero goal of its facilities.
As the museum's Director of Facilities, how would you describe your role in helping the museum achieve its net zero goal?
So I serve as kind of the key strategist, if you will. I joined the museum about 4 years ago and was brought on specifically to kind of reshape the facilities department as we were really transitioning from more of a mom and pop local museum to really a national asset.
What are the most important steps facility managers can take to help their facilities achieve their net zero goals?
So I think the first and most important thing is the ability to get your hands around how your buildings are operating currently. So a big part of our effort has been about in developing a strategy and creating a plan, defining for ourselves milestones, benchmarks, and goals to achieve, is we first had to break down our internal operating systems, our HVAC, our DOAS, our dedicated outside air systems. We use a reverse osmosis system to soften. We use steam in our facility for humidification, for protection of the art and the art objects we contain, art and artifacts we contain within our buildings. And so our first effort was to capture how all of that is operating. And we did that through our commissioning efforts. We did a reverse commissioning effort on the Hamilton building to get us onto a level playing field. And then we introduce a analytic overlay to our building automation system, which allows us now to use data-driven decision-making to actually target and identify for ourselves specific goals that we can track. You know, what gets measured gets managed. And so we can now track specifically, are we making advances? Are we making gains? And that lets us know how we're moving the dial toward achieving the goals we've set for ourselves in our effort to achieve net zero.